Talk about the aims of an African-centered education. I took some notes one time when Dr. Hilliard was talking, and he said the aims of an African-centered education, you should answer these questions for ourselves. We need to be able to answer, where am I? What time is it? And who is my family? Where am I? We need to answer the questions for ourselves. Where am I? What time is it? And who is my family? He said, an African-centered education will tell you who your friends are, who your people are, who other people are, and what is my story. He says that there's a cultural unity among our people. We have peoples that are linked together by cultures. And we also need to look at the impact of Africa on other cultures. And he cautioned us to be aware of Greeks bearing philosophy or mythology. We need to talk about our Holocaust story, our Ma'afa story. We also need to talk about our story of resistance, story of our creativity, and a people's history, more than just kings and queens. And I understand when people say, they call each other kings and queens. It's better than calling each other the N word and the B word. But I think we also need to remember that it was kings and queens that got us here. And then he said, we must know the story of the story and, put things in context where facts are situated. And he says, no African story that plays off of the European story. And these are some books written by Dr. Hilliard. Saba, The Reawakening of the African Mind. Maroon Within Us, Selected Essays on African-American Community Socialization. What is the quality of childcare? That seems to be a presidential subject that was in the debate last night. He wrote The Teachings of Ptahhotep. Ptahhotep is actually credited with being the oldest book in the world. African Power, Affirming African Indigenous Socialization in the Face of Cultural Wars. 50 plus essential references of of the history of African people. And The True Voice, the poet of Lesterfield Middleton. And those of you that remember Lesterfield Middleton, Dr. Asa Hilliard was a guest more than a few times on his PBS TV program. Dr. Hilliard is the one who gives us, who brings Stolen Legacy to us. And he found that, I know some of you are familiar with the story. He was in a, whatever the HBCU is in Arkansas. He was in the president's office, and he noticed Stolen Legacy. He picked it up, started reading it, brought it back to the Bay Area, gave it to Marcus Books and Julian Richardson Press, reprinted it. The book was written in 1954, and they reprinted it in 1976. All right. I like this part. This is the first paragraph in Dr. Hilliard's introduction to Stolen Legacy. And he says, Mental bondage is invisible violence. Formal physical slavery has ended in the United States. Mental slavery continues to this present day. This slavery affects the minds of all people, and in one way is worse than physical slavery alone. That is, the person who is in mental bondage will be self-contained. Not only will that person fail to challenge beliefs and patterns of thought which control him, he will defend and protect those beliefs and patterns of thought with this last dying effort. I'm going to stop sharing because I see some people have put some things in the chat that I want to read, but they might want to keep them private. So let's see. Keedy writes, should an African-centered education also include the question, how can I use my education to further my people? It certainly can. That's a good addition. Thank you. It's Flanders Smith in Arkansas. Thank you for okay, 3 people put that in. Thanks. I can never remember Flanders Smith for some reason. What did you mean by that, Keedy, your addition?
I am sometimes a little alarmed at the protracted struggle that our people have for identity. And when I was looking at the question list that Dr. Asa Hilliard submitted there, it kind of hit me hard that the questions had nothing, or I didn't see anything directly, correct me if you see something that I missed, that directly contributed to actions, non-selfish actions on the part of bettering our race. I got to be very careful how I speak about this, because I did have a few, not conflicts, but a few points of kind of contention and or butting heads a little bit with some of the scholars back in the ASCAC days, because I grew up thinking that it was actions that ultimately determined our fate, and not this seemingly never-ending struggle for who am I? I'll kind of pause right there because it's getting into a little bit of a sensitive area.
Well, you know what? These were some notes that I took down in my Kente Cloth book, and it was an ASCAC conference. It was at Laney College in Oakland, and it was like one of the early ASCAC conferences, and Dr. Hilliard was just talking, and that's what I jotted down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so of course he had more emphasis on you know, placing us where we should be, but those are just the initial things. You know, it was just like a rudimentary thing that he was doing. He was just giving us the basics. So yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, the questions as phrased, what you put on screen are very, very open questions. So I'm sure he was deliberate in not constraining or presuming very much. So those questions are important for all people. They're just especially important for Africans because there have been deliberate efforts to confuse us around those things.
Yeah, even now, if you take a survey, some of us back then we were Bilalians, and you know we were Nation of Islam. We were Zarita. I'm gonna put you on mute, okay?
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. It's just for Zoom. It's a little distracting. I hope you're not insulted. So, you know, we have all these. I remember Kwame Ture saying, if you put 10 of us in a room and asked us who we are, you'll get 10 different answers. You know, and he went around all the different names that we call ourselves. I mean, and he says when you get to the 10th person, that person will say, I'm unique. You know, yeah. Thanks, Bill. Yeah. So so that's what he was initially trying to do. And even now, okay, now we got other things that we call ourselves. You know, and it's it can get confusing. All right, let's see. Okay, anyone else before we move on? Who is Wing Tech? Who is that? I see your picture in the back, but with the blinds, but I can't make out who that is. Who?
Definitely everything.
Say that again. And that's Rita. I see. And I see somebody that says Wing Tech. Okay. I was just hoping that you could identify yourself. All right. I'm going to move on. Hopefully I'm not insulting anybody. You know, because I really don't like to do that. All right. Yeah. So it's a basic thing. Here's Dr. James, and you know his biography. He's born in Guyana, and you know, there's a master's in Durham University in England, doctorate in Columbia in New York, and so he was a professor of logic, Greek at Livingston College in Salisbury, North Carolina, before working at Arkansas A&M and in college in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. So he died soon after. He published Stolen Legacy, and there's like it's kind of there's a suspicion that he may have been killed. You know, he left his friends, you know, he went on a train ride, and next thing you know, he was dead. So, but don't want to go into that speculation too much. And then, okay, I like what Dr. Carter G. Woodson wrote in his book, The Miseducation of the Negro. This is in the preface. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go far in his book. No systematic effort towards change has been possible, for taught the same economics, history, philosophy, literature, religion, which have established the present code of morals, the Negro's mind has been brought under the control of his oppressor. The problem of holding the Negro down, therefore, is easily solved. When you control a man's thinking, you don't have to worry about his actions. You don't have to tell him to stand here or go yonder. He will find his proper place and he will stay in it. You don't need to send him to the back door. He'll go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he'll cut one for his special benefit. His education makes it necessary. And then the second paragraph is also very poignant as well. He said, the same educational process which inspires and stimulates the oppressor with the thought that he is everything and has accomplished everything worthwhile depresses and crushes at the same time the spark of genius in the Negro by making him, by the way, this book was written in 1933, and depresses and crushes the spark of genius in the Negro by making him feel that his race does not amount to much and will never measure up to the standards of other people. The Negro thus educated is a hopeless liability of the race. The difficulty that the educated Negro is compelled to live and move among his own people, whom he has been taught to despise as a rule. Therefore, the educated Negro prefers to buy a store from a white grocer, and he goes on. You get the idea. All right, I'm going to move on. So he said, this is going back to Dr. Hilliard. He says, African people created the first civilization. And I can't go to this site, but it talks about this early stone structure that's in South Africa. He said, African people are the first people on the planet. African people are the first modern type. So all of the stages, bodily form of humanity, all start in Africa. Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo Neanderthal, and Homo sapiens sapiens. Then he says there's a cultural unity, people who are linked together by cultures, the impact of Africa on other cultures, beware of Greeks bearing philosophy or mythology. Says we need to know our Holocaust story, our Ma'afa story. I like that word, Ma'afa. You know, a lot of times we use the word MF, and maybe we should use Ma'afa. It's Kiswahili, it means disaster or terrible occurrence. Dr. Welsing says when we use MF, we're simultaneously referring to powerlessness. And so he's also says we need to recognize the story of our resistance, story of our creativity. We need to look at people history more than just kings and queens. So I included in here evolution of the alphabet. You know, so if you look just in Western standards of origins of the alphabet, it goes Kemetic, so-called Semitic, Phoenician, Greek, Roman, or Egyptian, Greek, and Latin. It starts in Africa. And you can see how it goes from the hieroglyphics, so-called hieroglyphics, to the Byblos, to the Sinai region, to the Canaanites who, you know, deciphered a lot of language and alphabets throughout the world. So there's this chart, pretty intense. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Any questions, any comments? Have I lost you?
No, thank you.
Go ahead. Were you going to say something, Sebastian?
It's really interesting as you go through these doctors, and Asa Hilliard uses African. Dr. James uses Negro.
Yeah.
The indoctrination process, you know, is just displayed in whatever generation.
Yeah. You know, I talked to Johnny last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is a relative of Brother Sebastian, and he's in Egypt. He says outside of
Cairo.
Cairo. Yeah, he lives in Egypt. You know, when and this is another thing that only Sebastian and I would understand. We have a mutual friend who's passed. His name was Alan.
Mm-hmm.
Alan Cleveland.
Cleveland.
And when you'd call Alan, like now, if you'd call Alan, he'd pick up the phone and he'd say, Negroes for Trump. You know,
Oh, that's him all day long.
I miss that. You know, Asante was on. That's his son. Everyone, and Asante's a grown man. He used to play for the Niners, and now he does these podcasts, and he also is a sportscaster for Channel 3 up here. He does football, but he was writing how much he misses his dad and how it sucks that he can't pick up the phone and talk to him. And you know, so I wrote to him. So anyway,
To
I
add a
know.
little bit, a
Go
little
ahead.
bit more to that is
Go ahead.
there are two other fellows on here, and that's Willie Zen and Herman Hill.
Oh, really?
That they know Asante and
Okay.
Alan also. As a matter of fact, we were all just speaking about them last night. So
All right. So, okay. Well, cool. I guess that was the reason why I mentioned it. I feel I really miss Alan. He was a good guy. Sometimes I would be walking and, you know, I'd have my headphones in. Those of you that get a chance, we actually had his son Asante on Black Knowledge Matters. Go back and you can see who he developed into a great young man. Really a great person.
deep
Okay.
voice, just like his dad's.
Yep. Okay. Any other things that anybody would like to mention? Should we close right now? All right. Okay. All right. So can everybody see that Dr. Obinga? Of course, Dr. Obinga and Dr. Jope. One of my favorite books, and it's not very thick. Ancient Egypt and Black Africa by Dr. Obinga. And in that book, he drops some knowledge that is just phenomenal. He shows us that the word philosophy isn't even a Greek word. Doesn't have an etymology in Indo-European or Greek. That when he said that was just so, wow, that was just, you know, because people argue with stolen legacy and you know, and of course the Greeks created philosophy, blah, 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 blah. And then Dr. Obinga, a linguist, points out how no, it's the compound word of philo and sophos is not even a Greek word. Can't find it in European language. That it actually comes from a Kemetic word, theba, to instruct, to educate, to learn. You can find it going back to the pyramid text. And anyway, so these are just the highlights, and he goes into, he says the Egyptian F becomes the Greek PH sound. So Sebi, you know, Dr. Sebi, learned, you know, becomes Sophos in Greek. And this is how you would write it. In glyph, and it means star. So you'll see that star there. Door or portal to teach, and actually, Sugar D, you probably can relate to this, and those of you that are teachers, Zarita and others, a teacher is a doorway or a portal. You know, teaching, instructing, school, student, or pupil. Star, you know, represents you know, it's patterned after a starfish with the 5 equidistant spokes, symbol of the constellation or star Neteru, represented in the Duat. So, and here it is again, and the way they have this It has a stick after it. You know, and sometimes teachers have to get a stick.
That's definitely, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. So here, the ancient Hebrews. You know, here, these are pictures of the ancient Hebrews. This is how they looked. This is the picture. This one behind these Hebrew brothers. This is Assyrian. All these were black people at one time in that area. You can find this statue or this relief is in like other places in the British Museum. And the Canaanites is a picture of some Canaanites. Those are all black people. And I like this picture. I hope this is big enough for everybody to see. If it's not, I can make, but it just shows you the Canaanites and or the Phoenicians. The Greeks called them Phoenicians. They had a lot to do with civilizing Europe and civilizing the world. Hannibal was a Phoenician, a Canaanite. Just to give you an example. This is a bust, Phoenician, going back to Spain. They founded Cadiz in southwestern Spain, 1100 BC, and they were they had 10 mines in Spain. They were sailing all up and down the Mediterranean Sea. And then I found this is interesting, a 1930 photograph of two Canaanites in Palestine before the genocide. These are the descendants of the Canaanites, Philistines, who are mentioned in the Bible. You don't see too many Palestinians look like this today. Look at these brothers. Assyrian king, 681 BC. Tefnut. Okay, I'm going to stop here. Somebody had put something in the chat. Let me see what it says. Ancient Hebrews before the Iron Dome. Yeah, exploded. Yeah. You know, so when I look at the whole region of Palestine and Lebanon, I know that originally those were black people. How many knew that? Just raise your hand, either virtually or on the screen. How many knew that? Okay, Jerry. All right. Sebastian, Sugar D, Bill. Yes, Keedy, I think it goes without saying. You know, you know, I know you knew that. But yeah, most people don't know that. You go ahead, Herman. Go ahead. Take yourself off mute. Go ahead.
Oh, Minister, I was just going to acknowledge that I was aware of that. Just trying to acknowledge that I was aware of it.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, so when we talk about, okay, the original inhabitants of that land was black people. Go ahead, Keedy. What were we going to say?
There is the old riddle. What happened to the people of Sumer? We recognize the Sumerians were an African lineage. They disappeared because they forgot their history.
Yeah. Well, you know what? That's how Dr. Chancellor Williams opens up his book, Destruction of Black Civilization. He opens his book with that question. He opens his book with that question. Yeah. Yep. So again, we're talking about now. Let me go back here. So what I'm going to say is a little controversial, but stay with me now. So this next thing is dealing with Tefnut. Now, most people say this is Hor Em Aket. Most people that are in Kemet, but there's an actual older tradition that says it's a female. That this is actually a statue of a female, and it's representing Tefnut or Tefnuti, the Neter Tefnuti. I got into an argument with a guy last night on social media, and he was trying to say that this, you know, that this face wasn't African, and so I had to show him some side profiles.
How you doing?
You had to put his shoes on, huh?
I did. I did. So, and the reason why I'm going with the Tefnut thing, and I read this in the book, The Land of Osiris, and in that book, it talks about the indigenous wisdom keeper, Abdel Hakim Awiyan. He speaks about the Sphinx being 52,000 years old. And it represents Tefnut, Sekhmet, Menhet, Mut, and it's a female deity. And you know, in the 18th dynastic period, there was a revision that referred to it as Hor Em Aket, or Horus of the in the horizon. So you know, I don't want to spend a lot of time with it unless there are questions, but that's why I use the term Tefnut instead of Hor Em Aket. Okay, move on. So you know what? We have civilizations in Africa going back 200,000 years. And there are these city circles in South Africa going back 200,000 years, and there's an Ankh, petroglyph of an Ankh inside a circle radiating out like it's an Ankh inside the sun, which is what really is happening. The sun gives life to this solar system, particularly to this Earth. And you can go to South Africa. This is what that sister was talking about in Yenyensi. Oh, by the way, let me stop here. You know, we had that Black Knowledge Matters that we had for in Yenyensi, we had the most viewed that we've ever had. Brother Damani pointed this out to me. We have 1.3K views. We've never had that. Right. We've never had that many before. And she pointed out that you know, Hor or Heru, this is found in South Africa. You know, so getting back to what Dr. Hilliard is telling us, he said that we're linked by cultures. There's just not something that just happened, you know, the northern tip of Africa, the people came in from Asia. No. The root of it is in Southern Africa. All right. And here, these are These are what's left over the walls of those cities in South Africa. Now, in the Sahara, there's this thing called the Eye of the Sahara. And it could be seen by satellite. This is what you can see by satellite. It's 25 miles across, and it's used as a landmark by astronauts. This is an artist's conception of it. This is where it would be, on the continent. This is what the Greeks called Atlantis. This is a map according to Herodotus. And I don't know if you can see right here. Let me go back. I'll make it bigger because I want you to see this. See Atlantis right here. This is what the Greeks thought Atlantis was. Here, this is another map made by Europeans. And look, they have Atlantis at the same place. It's called the Ricard, or the Eye of the Sahara. Let me go back here. And this is a statue of, this is Zeus sitting on his throne. He's pictured as black. I see Thandiwe. She always refers to us as Onyx. She'll say Onyx King. Onyx is a word that means black. So here you have Zeus painted black, and you have Poseidon painted black. They were telling us something. When you talk about Memnon, this is Memnon. And this is an authentic bust of Alexander the Great. I remember Dr. Ben talking one time, and he was talking about Cletus Batria, who was one of Alexander's greatest generals. And he was known to be an African man. And, it was after a battle, and the men were drinking, and Alexander was drunk, and Cletus was chiding Alexander. He was, he was telling him that he shouldn't, be around here drunk. And while he had his back turned, Alexander picked up a javelin and threw it at him, and it got him in the back. So he threw a javelin in his back, and then he immediately became remorseful, and he went over and he was holding him, it was cradling. He was sobbing, Cletus, my brother. And then Cletus' last dying message to him, he says, "Fool thou art, Alexander, you have killed your own mother's son." But Western historians say that he was talking about Alexander's nurse. He didn't say, "Fool thou art, you're killing your nurse's son." He said, "You're killing your mama's son." So even when you talk about Alexander the Great, you have to include an African component. Now there's a nuclear reactor in Gabon, and we kind of talked about this. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. The 2 billion year old nuclear reactor in Gabon.
Sir,
Go ahead. Hello? Somebody wanted to say something? Okay. So France gets their they get their uranium from Gabon. This is where Gabon is on the African continent. And one day, they got some uranium that had been used. So they went and investigated, and they found a nuclear fission reactor in Gabon. Now, this is something that points to like billions of years old. And so what they try to say is that this is a natural phenomenon, but there's no other place like this on Earth. There's no other natural nuclear power plant on Earth. So Africans, when we talk about African history and how far back it goes and how much we need to research, these are things that we need to be aware of. Now, you can't even have symbols like the caduceus symbol. It's a combination of this Badeti and these staffs. This is Chehudi, and the Greeks called him Mercury. Excuse me. Yeah, they called him. Let's see. No, the Romans called him Mercury. The Greeks called him what? Somebody help me out. I'm forgetting. Hermes. The Greeks called him Hermes. The Romans called him Mercury. He was associated with medicine. And here he is giving life, giving the symbol of life to this Per'ah while he's holding these staffs, serpents going up him. And when you combine these two, that's where you get the caduceus symbol, the medical symbol for today. And I know you guys are probably bored with this one, but the origin of the Great Seal of the United States comes from, this was found in King Tut's tomb. When you look at it, it's almost identical. Only thing is, I like to say this, Sugar D. So this is an olive branch, and that's supposed to represent peace. And this is arrows. It represents war. So this is supposed to be like war and peace. But when I was growing up in our backyard, it was an olive tree, and my mother would go out and pick like an olive branch to give us whippings. So an olive branch has never been represented peace to me. All right.
Okay.
All right. And here, these symbols represent eternity. And on top of it is life. So on the African one, he's holding eternal life in both talons. But here, the United States seal is holding war and peace. All right, let me stop here. Everybody okay? What's up? Who is that has the Samsung? Who's that? We'd like, if you could identify yourself, let us know who you are. All right, I'm going to stop talking. What's up? What are y'all?
That might be someone that was driving a little earlier.
Okay. Well, yeah, but don't change then if you're driving. That would be bad. Yeah.
Well, the thievery is alive and well.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Here we have Wasir. Some people say Asar. Others say Osiris. And after these people have gone and have said the 42 declarations of innocence and had their heart weighed on the feather of truth, they come before the judge, and he's sitting on the throne. What he's sitting on is representative of the glyph of Ma'at. He's also sitting on the square, you know, in Masonic terms, the compass and the square. And he's got this X on him. We see this X here. This is where it comes from. Look at, so if you look at it, it has like little stars or diamonds on his necklace, on I don't know what this is called, so I don't want to misstate it. But here he's got these emblems. And here, yeah, Sebastian, the thievery is live and well. Here is Wasir again. He's got that X again. And forgive me for this little joke. Maybe this is what they mean by the South will rise again. I don't know.
Brother Imhotep, can you step back to that so-called Confederate flag for a second?
Sure, brother. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 20 years ago, I put an interpretation out of this symbol.
Yes.
And it circulated quite a bit for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
What we are looking at, from the bottom, we see a pyramid, the same pyramid reflected from the top and from the sides. Those represent 4 cardinal elements.
Mm.
Inside that, we see the crossing, the blue crossings holding up the stars. That is representative of the goddess Nut, who holds up the sky.
Wow.
Inside of each of those bars, we see 3 stars. And actually there's, I think this particular flag has 1 extra star on each side. I think it should only be 3 stars. I've done this many, many times, never seen this many stars on it. There should be 13 stars.
Mm.
Oh yeah. No. There's 1, 2 there. Yeah, this one has 17 stars. Should be 13 stars on this flag. The center star representing Ra, the center of it all, with the 3 stars in each of the bars representing 3 houses of the zodiac, corresponding to fire, water, earth, and air.
Mm. Mm.
And then lastly, the essential colors of the red, the white, and blue represent the White House temple complex at Saqqara. And those 3 colors represented, I think it was the crown of the upper kingdom, the crown of the lower kingdom, and then unified crown had those three colors in it. So my conclusion at the time was there was a lot of Black people protesting this flag being shown across the South.
Mm-hmm.
And my attempt was to show that the Freemasons had designed this based upon African cosmology. And instead of protesting it, especially in states where we held such a large percentage of the electoral body politic, instead of protesting the flag, we should make the effort to claim everything the flag was flying over. Now, I don't think I'm wrong that there are 17 stars in this, and there should be 13 stars in this flag.
You know what? I've heard that before. I've heard that portion. I haven't heard everything that you get. I'm so glad that you said what you said to enlighten us, because that's what this that's what the Black Knowledge Matters is all about. But I just grabbed this picture, back a while, and
Yeah, I'll double check in the background, but I'm pretty sure the stars should have 13. The flag should have 13 stars instead of 17.
Yeah, so here, Wasir is rising. And then we see this cross, this X. Washington's got it, but the Amazulu people have it, the Kemetic people have it, the Tutsi people have it. It's all connected. It all comes from an African source. It all comes from an African root. And when we preserve the bodies in the form of mummies, we made this symbol. Is this the origin of the Union Jack? And here, what this is representing here is showing the right-angled triangle is another form which is deserving attention. Among the Egyptians, it was the symbol of the universal nature, the base representing Wasir or Osiris, the male principle, the perpendicular Aset or Isis, the female principle, and the hypotenuse, Hor or Horus or Heru, their son, the product of male and female principle. And this symbol was received by Pythagoras. They didn't teach me this in 8th grade mathematics when I was first introduced to geometry. But this origin of Pythagorean theorem. I'm going to stop here. Somebody put a couple of things in the chat. So I just want to. Oh, okay. Thank you, Kitty. Okay, Kitty put that in the chat. All right, cool. All right. Are your eyes glazed over yet? Anybody? Sebastian, are you trying to unmute yourself? Is that what you're doing? No. Okay. All right.
This is good stuff, Minister Imhotep. We're listening. We're not glazed over.
It just never. It would kind of help if you were in person. I could tell. And then, okay, just keep on going. We're all adults here. I hope that you are not insulted by this picture, but the vaginal opening of the cathedrals is representative of the feminine organ. You see that? It'll make you look at the word hymnal a little differently next time. And then if you go into like a Catholic church, particularly a Catholic church, you see all this. They're representing the feminine aspect, at the same time denying women equal rights and justice in the religious institution. Now, I'm going to show something, and I want to stop here because it's going to be I'm going to show the female organ, okay, and I'm going to show the comparison, and I don't want anybody to be offended, you know, but we're just looking at some things, African origin of things, origin of certain symbols. Now, in Dr. Sheikh Job's book, African Origin of Civilization, Myth or Reality, on page 127, and I've highlighted this, he says, the pilgrimage to Mecca already existed. The Kaaba was reputed to have been constructed by Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and Hagar, the Egyptian, an African woman. I hate that word, Negro. Historical ancestor of Muhammad, according to all Arab historians. As in Egypt, belief in future life was already prevalent. Dead ancestors were deified. Thus, all the elements necessary for the blooming of Islam were in place more than 1,000 years before the birth of Muhammad. Islam would appear as a purification of Sabianism by the messenger of God. So those people in that area, there were Black people and they were called Sabians. Now I'm going to continue on. So Sebastian, Dr. Robertson gave me this book, or turned me on to this book, The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets by Barbara Walker. And I tried to make these pages as legible as I could. It's a big, thick book. It's, like 400 or 500 pages. So I was trying to, anyway, it says, before Islam arrived in the 7th century AD, Arabia was matriarchal for over 1,000 years of recorded history. The annals of Ashurbanipal said Arabia was governed by queens for as long as anyone could remember. The land's original Allah was Allat, part of the female trinity, along with Kor, the virgin, and El-Uzza, the powerful one, the trinity known as Manat, the threefold moon. At Mecca, the goddess was Saba or Sheba, the old woman, worshipped as a black iconic stone, like the goddess of the Scythians like the goddess of the Scythian Amazon. The same black stone was now enshrined in the Kaaba at Mecca, was the feminine symbol marked by the sign of the yoni and covered like the ancient mother by a veil. Anyway, this section, it goes on that, okay, harem, when we think of a harem, we think of a king and he's got all these women around him and it's in a harem, but the harem was originally a sanctuary that meant temple of women. It was centered around the feminine aspect. So I'm going to skip all this other part here, before your eyes glaze over. But again, the book is called The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets by Barbara Walker, and it goes from A to Z, and so this is under the section of Arabia. And so, usually when we think of the Kaaba, we see this square, but this is what the Kaaba is showing. It's showing the feminine reproductive organ. Just like when you go into those Catholic churches, the doors. All right, moving on. Let me see. Did I lose anybody? You guys have dropped off, huh? I hope a jihad isn't going to happen now.
What's the title of that book again?
Say again, I'm sorry.
I said, if it does, we'll point it in the right direction.
All right.
I'm glad you shared that, Imho, because as you know, that was one of the pointed questions I asked Dr. Robinson as it related to the Trinity. And he was talking about how the European, in his thievery, well, actually what he said is that's how he got questions like that is what got him kicked out of the seminary.
Sure. Yeah, they don't like those questions. Those are not good questions.
No, because he always had questions, but he was just saying how they wanted to humanize it in the direction of the male.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I asked him what was the woman faction of it in that book and other things he had shared with me. You're right. He always spoke of the woman connection of the Trinity and not the male.
And those of you that remember Dr. Ben, this is what Dr. Ben used to always say. Dr. Ben was always referring to the feminine principle. He referred to it always. So let's we got about 16 minutes. Here, of course, the Madonna and child evolution. It was Aset and Hor or Heru. Afterwards, it became Mary and Yeshua, and then after this, I don't know what it became. But we can't seem to get away from that. I wish we could. Here again, when you read the story of Yeshua or Jesus, it's just talking about astronomical things. This is what it's talking about from a astronomical point of view. And then in Kemet, here it is with the Jed symbol and life and the sun and Aset and Nebhet. Like, see, they're there. And then, okay, 1,200 years later, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and Mary Magdalene. Getting back to the Masonry, Washington was wearing Masonic garb. He was wearing Kemetic garb. The Masons go back to what the ancestors long now. I have a friend that became he became a head Mason here in Sacramento, and he was his son and my son were on the same soccer team. He was from the Ivory Coast, and I went to his installation. I'm not sure what it's called, and he told me, he said it's just like, he said to me it was just like initiation back in Cote d'Ivoire, where he was from. But here, look, there's George Washington in the shape of the Ba. When they do their rituals, they're just imitating what the Africans had done. Here, the square and the compass. It's going back to Aset and Heru. I know I've kind of beat this to death, but this is a very important symbol. Now, there's some people, they're called Jehovah's Witness. And I forgot to include, because there's another picture to this. So, I mean, the Jehovah's Witness used to come by my grandmother's house, and mother had lost Papa, and so she would let him in, and she would talk to him, and they would bring their watchtowers and Awake magazines and stuff. But little did we know that Charles Taze Russell, the founder of the Jehovah's Witness, he was a pyramidologist, and this pyramid is right by his tomb. And you know what? People started talking about this so much, and I didn't include that picture, but they actually moved this. There's pictures of cranes and everything. They moved this, but here. So the Jehovah's Witness goes back to Kemet. And there's pictures of Charles Taze Russell standing on the pyramids with some other guys. And they were known as pyramidologists. Okay, this goes back to our creativity. Granville T. Woods, telephone transmitter, railway system, subway system, roller coaster, more. He had over 100 electrical and mechanical inventions. Many of his patents was purchased by General Electric, Westinghouse, Bell, and Thomas Edison. He successfully sued Edison in court for stealing his patents on 2 occasions. All right, I'm going to stop now. We got about 10 minutes. You guys get the idea. Any questions or comments? Oh,
Can I make a suggestion?
go ahead, man. Make a suggestion.
Yeah, there we go. I want to make a suggestion to us here that let's try and invite people to get this knowledge, because like Keely mentioned earlier, that when we don't know, they take it and make it theirs, and we don't, we don't even know that we should hang on to it, because we don't know that we're connected to it.
Yeah.
And it's places like this is where we begin to, us here, this group, we know. We got to bring some people that don't know.
Yeah.
And Minister, you've mentioned that I beat this with a dead horse, and you guys are probably, no. Repetition is what they do to get us to break away from it. Repetition is what it is we need to continue to hear to stay to it.
True. Let me just thank you for that, Sebastian. Let me just talk about our Holocaust story a little bit as we close out here. What kind of a person would do this? This is in I think it's in New Zealand. These are people's heads on the wall. This here on the right is in Australia. You know about the Middle Passage.
And about the U.S., what kind of people would do this? If we visit Benin, home of the ancient empire of Dahomey, and go to the palace of King, I believe it was Gelele, and he had a huge collection of the heads of his Africans who were his rivals. Many hundreds of heads he collected.
Yeah. That's why I say it's kings and queens that got us here. And that's why Dr. Hilliard is saying that we need to get beyond history of just kings and queens. Middle Passage. And they say, I heard this, that you know how they say Black people tend to have high blood pressure. Some of that is from diet, but some of these people had high blood pressure, and that's how they were able to survive the Middle Passage.
Say that again, Minister.
Some people had high blood pressure, and that's why they were able to survive the Middle Passage.
Can you elaborate on that?
Please.
You know, that's just something you're going to have to look up.
Okay.
But yeah, high blood pressure helped a number of people survive the Middle Passage.
And we do acknowledge that at that time, our life expectancy was 30 years.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they retained salt better than most. That was. And now this is like our favorite song, Black people's favorite song. You know which song I'm talking about?
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
And this is the man who wrote it. He was a captain of a slave ship. And what he was talking about that saved a wretch like me, they almost, the ship almost capsized or sunk, and somehow it was saved, and he wrote about it. John Newton. Let me see if I could find this really fast. There's a brother that wrote. Let's see. I'm going to look for it really. Try to find it really fast. But there's a brother that talked about this.
He wrote a song and we want to hear it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he was at a big showing. Here it is. I found it. All right. And I'm gonna this is what we're gonna close out with. Okay. This is what we're gonna close. Yeah. Some of you may have seen this already.
This has been an awesome night, isn't it, everyone? This one. How many of you like Negro spirituals? An old black lady down south showed me something about the Negro spirituals, and I want to share it with you. The black folk down south had more sense by accident than some of us have on purpose. You know what I mean? You didn't hear what I said. I heard an old black lady say, "Son, if the mountain was smooth, you couldn't climb it." Think about that for a minute. But did you know, she said to me, did you know just about all Negro spirituals are written on the black notes of the piano? This is absolutely true. You can go home tonight and play almost any Negro spiritual, just play the black notes on the piano. You look skeptical. Now, you can't see it out there, but I want you to watch. Watch. There are 5 black notes on the piano. And those same 5 black notes just keep recurring. And you can go home tonight and play almost any Negro spiritual. Just play the black notes. Watch. You know that? Every time I feel the spirit, just black notes. Watch this. That's because the slaves didn't come to America with do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. That's somebody else's scale, okay? All they had in their musical scale were those 5 black notes. We know it in music as the pentatonic scale. And they built the power and pathos of the Negro spiritual on 5 notes. When you study music, you also come across what are known as white spirituals. Did you know that? And they are white composers who work with that scale. In early America, they used to call this the slave scale. And I'm going to play for you what some musicologists think is the most famous white spiritual built on the slave scale or just the black notes. Anybody tonight know who wrote that song? I heard it, a man by the name of John Newton. But do you know what John Newton did before he became a Christian? He was the captain of a slave ship. And many believe heard this melody that sounds very much like a West African sorrow chant and wrote the words Amazing Grace and set his words to a slave melody. I looked up that song. I believe God wanted that song written just the way it was written, just so that we would be reminded that as Christians, whether black or white, free or bond, in his eyes, we're all connected. We are connected. And we are connected by God's amazing grace. We are connected by God's amazing grace. Woo!
Okay.
I'm
Before
gonna
he,
see if I can invite him to Black Knowledge Matters.
before he became a Christian, anyway.
Because he needs to get the rest of the story.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
probably won't come.
he probably won't. No, I don't.
Yeah,
Thank
First
you.
Friday, this Friday, if you want to have a little fun.
Yes, we're going to have First Friday, and we're also going to have SOS tomorrow, and we're going to be talking about El Shaddadi and how that's connected to the Neteru. That's what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to continue with that for the message on Sunday. I'm going to Oakland to give the message, so that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. And yes, indeed. You know what? We have fun on First Fridays. And Sugar D, she's got these games that she's, and her and Darnisha, they work together, and they put. Anyway, we have a lot of fun, and Bill ends up usually winning the games. But we hope that you could join us on Friday. So the first week of the month, we got a lot going on. So we got Black Knowledge Matters, and the next day we got SOS, and then the next day we got First Fridays, and for special added attraction, next Monday we're having Sacramento Elders meeting. So we hope you can join us then. All right, glad you all could make it. Let's see, there's one more thing. Thondiway, yes, Thondiway put in the chat look at what she put in the chat about slavery and hypertension. And so she put information about that. Bill mentioned something too. So thank you, Thondiway, for putting that in. And glad you all could remain with us.
You're welcome.
Life, prosperity, and health, guidance and protection. Live up. Hope to see you tomorrow. We're going to be talking about El Shaddadi. We're going to actually, I got it from Saraswati. When we meet on Mondays and Fridays, she opened up with a scripture, the 91st Psalm. And when you read the 91st Psalm, it is talking about the God aspect that there is El Shaddai. And the way it's written in Hebrew, it's the same way it's written. Neteru is written in Medu Neter. So that's what we're going to be looking at tomorrow. Mama Rose, glad you could be with us. Mama Zarita, Sebastian, Brother Amen, Henry, Katie, man, that was top ranking. Thank you for giving us that information. That is something I'm gonna hold on to. All right, and Willie, thanks for coming by. Darnisha, Judy, Bill, you're always great. Asata, hope you're doing well where you are, and glad you could join us today. Let's see, Bill put something else in. Yeah, go ahead. Were you gonna say something, Bill? No? Okay. All right. Yeah.
No, just see you again soon.
All right. See everybody soon. I always love to see everybody. All right. Take care. Life, prosperity, and health. Live up.